I'm Gillian Thompson, 68 years old, and I never thought my own daughter would try to steal my life savings. For 30 years, I worked as a nurse, saving every penny for retirement. When Amanda demanded I pay $200,000 for her dream wedding, I had to refuse. She blocked me for weeks. Then suddenly she invited me to dinner to reconcile. But when I arrived, 3 lawyers sat waiting with papers. Either sign over power of attorney or never see your grandson again, she said coldly. If you're watching this, please let me know where you're from and subscribe to hear what happened next. Life wasn't always this complicated with Amanda. Back when she was little, it was just the 2 of us against the world. Her father, Thomas, died in a construction accident when she was only 3 years old. I was 29, suddenly a widow with a toddler and mortgage payments that seemed impossible to manage on my own. I remember the night after Thomas's funeral, sitting at our kitchen table with bills spread out before me, trying to figure out how we'd survive. Amanda was asleep in her little bed with the pink butterfly sheets Thomas had picked out for her 3rd birthday just 2 weeks before the accident. I decided then and there that I would do whatever it took to give her a good life. I went back to school taking night classes to become a nurse, while my mother watched Amanda. For 3 years, I barely slept. I'd work a retail job during the day, attend classes at night, then study until 2 in the morning, only to wake up at 6 to get Amanda ready for preschool. The day I passed my nursing boards was one of the proudest moments of my life. Once I secured my position at Memorial Hospital in the emergency room, things got a bit easier financially, but the hours were brutal. I worked the night shift because it paid more, which meant I slept while Amanda was at school. On weekends, I'd pick up extra shifts to save for her future. My mother helped when she could, but she had her own health problems to manage. Despite our limited resources, I tried to give Amanda everything I could. When she wanted dance lessons at age 8, I took on an additional shift each month to pay for them. When she needed braces at 12, I sold my wedding ring to cover the orthodontist's down payment. For her 16th birthday, I worked double shifts for 6 months to buy her a used car that was safe and reliable. Amanda was such a sweet child, always drawing me pictures and leaving little notes in my lunch bag. "You're the best mommy in the world," she'd write with her colorful markers. But things began to change when she entered high school. Suddenly, my hard work wasn't enough. She wanted designer clothes like her friends, complained about our small 3-bedroom house, and rolled her eyes when I explained why we couldn't afford vacations to the places her classmates visited. "Why can't we ever have nice things?" became her frequent complaint. The first time she said it, the words cut through me like a knife. I was working 70 hours a week, my hands cracked and dry from hospital sanitizer, my back aching from lifting patients, all to provide for her. But somehow, it wasn't enough. College was the next hurdle. Amanda got accepted to a private university with a decent scholarship, but it still left thousands in expenses each semester. I took out a second mortgage on our house to cover what her loans wouldn't. I was proud to do it, believing education was the path to a better life for her. During her sophomore year, I received a call from my credit card company about suspicious charges. Nearly $10,000 had been spent in a single weekend. When I confronted Amanda, she broke down crying, explaining that she'd used my card for a spring break trip to Cancun with her new friends. "Everyone was going, Mom," she sobbed. "I didn't want to be the only one left behind." I should have been firmer then, should have made her face real consequences. Instead, I worked out a payment plan with the credit card company and picked up even more hours at the hospital. Looking back, that was the moment I began enabling behavior that would only grow worse over time. After college, Amanda got a job in marketing. It paid well, but she always seemed to be struggling financially. She'd call me for loans that were never repaid, show up with shopping bags from expensive stores while claiming she couldn't afford her rent. I dipped into my retirement savings more than once to bail her out. Then she met Jackson Williams from the Williams family that owned a chain of luxury car dealerships across 3 states. Jackson was handsome, charming, and came from the kind of wealth Amanda had always envied. Their relationship moved quickly, and within a year they had a son, my precious grandson Tyler. The first time I held Tyler in my arms, my heart melted completely. He had the same dimple in his right cheek that Amanda had, as a baby the same dimple Thomas had. It felt like a piece of my late husband had returned to me. I promised myself I'd be the best grandmother possible to this little boy. But as Amanda integrated into Jackson's world, the gap between us widened. She began making comments about my clothes, my car, my home. "Mom, you really should update your wardrobe if you're going to come to dinner with Jackson's parents," she'd say. Or, "Couldn't you trade in that old Toyota for something nicer? It's embarrassing when you pick up Tyler in that thing." Each comment stung, but I smiled through it. I was still paying off medical bills from a brief hospitalization 2 years prior, still trying to rebuild my retirement account after helping her through various financial emergencies. Jackson's parents, Gerald and Patricia, lived in a mansion with 6 bedrooms and a pool house. They took vacations to Europe twice a year and drove matching Mercedes. At family gatherings, Patricia would make subtle comments about my quaint lifestyle, as though my decades of hard work were some sort of charming eccentricity rather than necessary survival. Amanda quickly adopted their attitudes. The sweet little girl who once made me macaroni necklaces for Mother's Day was gone, replaced by a woman who seemed perpetually dissatisfied with what she had, always looking toward the next status symbol. I remember one afternoon when Amanda was about 6 years old. She'd fallen off the playground swing and scraped her knee badly. I cleaned the wound, applied a bandage, and held her while she cried. "You make the hurts. Go away, Mommy," she had whispered. Where was that little girl now? When had money and status become more important than our bond? Despite the growing tension, I treasured my relationship with Tyler. At 4 years old, he was curious, loving, and untouched by the materialism that had infected his mother. Every other weekend, Amanda would drop him off for grandma time while she and Jackson attended social events. Those weekends became my lifeline, a reminder of the pure love family should represent. The wedding demands came on a Tuesday afternoon in April. Amanda arrived at my house with a leather portfolio and a woman she introduced as Veronica, her wedding planner. I had made a simple lunch of tuna sandwiches and fruit, which Amanda barely touched while Veronica looked around my modest living room with poorly disguised disdain. "Mom, we need to discuss the wedding budget," Amanda announced, after minimal small talk. She opened the portfolio to reveal a spreadsheet with numbers that made my stomach drop. The total at the bottom, $400,000. "This is the breakdown of costs," she continued, pointing to various line items. "The venue is Rosewood Estate, the only place in the city with gardens large enough for our guest list of 300 people. That's $80,000 right there. But it includes the catering." I nodded numbly as she continued. "My dress is a custom Vera Wang, $30,000. The flowers are coming from specialty growers in Holland. That's another $25,000. Entertainment is a big one. We've booked the Rhythmics for the reception they performed at the governor's daughter's wedding last year. That's $50,000 plus accommodations." The list went on custom invitations, a 10-tier cake crystal centerpieces, private jets for Jackson's relatives, flying in from Europe, a horse-drawn carriage, fireworks display, and a honeymoon suite at a private island resort. Amanda, I finally interrupted this island. A lot of money. Well, it's our special day, Mom, she replied with an edge to her voice. We only plan to do this once. Of course, but $400,000 is more than my house is worth. Veronica cleared her throat delicately. Many families see this as an investment in their children's future. A wedding of this caliber creates important social connections. Jackson's parents are covering half, Amanda added. They expect you to match their contribution. The room seemed to spin slightly. You expect me to pay $200,000. It's not like you don't have savings, Mom. You've been working forever, and you live so frugally. Amanda gestured around my living room with its second-hand furniture and family photos in simple frames. My savings are for retirement, Amanda. I'm 68 years old. I can't work forever. But you're still working now, she countered. And you always said you saved everything for me for my future. For emergencies, for your education. Not for a single day's celebration that costs more than most people make in 5 years. Amanda's face hardened. Jackson's mother already offered to pay the whole thing if you can't afford it, but I told her my mom wouldn't let me down like that. Was I wrong? The manipulation was so transparent it made my chest hurt. Honey, I would love to contribute to your wedding, but something reasonable. Maybe $10,000. That's what I can afford without endangering my future. $10,000. Amanda laughed without humor. That won't even cover the floral arrangements for the rehearsal dinner. Then maybe you need to reconsider your plans. A wedding doesn't need to cost as much as a house to be meaningful. Amanda slammed the portfolio shut. I knew you wouldn't understand. This isn't just a wedding, Mom. It's my entrance into Jackson's world. His family has connections that could set us up for life, but they need to see that I come from a family that's worthy of their son. Worthy. The word felt like a slap. I raised you by myself, worked night shifts in an emergency room for 30 years, put you through college. How is that not worthy? You know what I mean, she huffed. This is about appearances, about showing we belong in their social circle. I've already put down non-refundable deposits, she continued, her voice rising. We've booked vendors based on a budget that includes your contribution. Everyone is counting on this. You made these plans without even asking me first. I was stunned by her presumption. Because I thought I could count on you, she shouted. All my life you've talked about how you'd do anything for me, but the one time I ask for something important, you refuse. This isn't refusing to buy you ice cream, Amanda. This is my entire retirement fund you're asking for. Fine, she stood up, gesturing for Veronica to do the same. I'll tell Jackson's parents that my mother cares more about hoarding her money than seeing her only daughter have the wedding she deserves. I'm sure they'll understand completely. Amanda, please let's talk about this rationally. Maybe we can find a compromise. There is no compromise, Mom. Either you're part of the most important day of my life or you're not. Your choice. With that, she stormed out, Veronica trailing behind with an awkward glance back at me. The next day, I called Amanda to suggest alternatives. Perhaps a smaller venue. Fewer guests, a ready-made dress instead of custom. She refused to discuss it, ending the call by saying, "It's all or nothing, Mom. 200,000, or don't bother coming to the wedding at all." I spoke with my financial advisor the following week. The numbers confirmed what I already knew. If I withdrew 200,000 from my retirement accounts, I would deplete more than half my savings. With medical costs rising and at least 20 years of retirement ahead of me, I would likely end up broke before I died. The advisor strongly cautioned against it. Meanwhile, Amanda launched what could only be described as a social media shaming campaign. She posted vague but pointed comments about parents who don't support their children and having to accept that some people will always disappoint you. Friends we had in common began reaching out to me asking why I was refusing to help with Amanda's wedding. One evening, I received a call from Patricia Williams Jackson's mother. "Gillian, dear," she began with false warmth, "I understand you're having some trouble with Amanda's wedding expenses. We'd be happy to cover the entire thing if it's too much for you." The condescension in her voice was unmistakable. "Thank you, Patricia, but this isn't about ability to pay. It's about reasonable expectations and financial responsibility." "Well," she replied coolly, "in our family we believe in celebrating important milestones properly, but I understand not everyone shares our values." The final blow came when Amanda texted me. "Until you reconsider your decision, I think it's best we take a break from our relationship. That includes your visits with Tyler." Using my grandson as leverage broke something inside me. That night, I went through old memory boxes, finding handmade cards Amanda had created for me throughout her childhood. "To the best mom in the universe," one read in crooked crayon letters. "Thank you for always taking care of me." I cried myself to sleep, wondering where I had gone wrong, how the loving child I raised had become someone who would use her own son as a bargaining chip. 3 weeks passed without a word from Amanda. I called every other day for the first week, leaving voicemails that went unanswered. I sent texts asking just to speak with Tyler on the phone. Nothing. It was as if my daughter and grandson had vanished from my life completely. Twice I drove by their house in the suburbs, hoping to catch a glimpse of Tyler playing in the yard. The first time the house appeared empty. The second time I saw him riding his little bike on the driveway with a woman I didn't recognize watching him, probably a nanny. I considered stopping, but feared creating a scene that would only make things worse. During the 3rd week of silence, I ran into Patricia Williams at Wilson's grocery store. I was in the produce section selecting apples when I heard her distinctive voice calling my name. "Gillian, what a surprise to see you here." Her tone suggested I'd somehow wandered into territory too upscale for someone of my standing. "Hello, Patricia. How are you?" I managed to keep my voice steady. "Just wonderful. We've been so busy with wedding preparations. The Rosewood estate needed some special accommodations for the string quartet, so we've been handling all that. Amanda has been an absolute dear through everything." I nodded, unsure how to respond. "Tyler misses you," she added, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Such a shame about this little disagreement. Families should really stick together, don't you think? Especially as we get older and need support." The implication wasn't subtle. I was being cast as the stubborn old woman who would soon need family to care for her family. I was alienating over money. "Please tell Tyler I miss him too," I said, ignoring her barb, "and that Grandma loves him very much." Of course, Patricia smiled. "I'm practically a second grandmother to him now with all the time we spend together. We're taking him to our lake house this weekend. The poor dear needs some spoiling after all this unpleasantness." I left the store without buying anything, sitting in my car for 20 minutes until the tears subsided enough for me to drive safely. My 69th birthday came and went without a call or card from Amanda. My friend Sandra took me out for dinner at the local Italian restaurant, bringing a small cake and gift. Sandra and I had worked together in the ER for 15 years before she left nursing to become a paralegal, eventually working her way through law school at night. Now she specialized in elder law, a career change inspired by witnessing how many of our elderly patients were being taken advantage of by family members. "Have you heard anything from Amanda?" Sandra asked as we shared tiramisu. "Nothing. It's been nearly a month now." Sandra shook her head. "I don't like this, Gillian. Using access to your grandson as leverage to get money from you, that's emotional abuse." "She's just angry," I said, though, without much conviction. "She'll come around." "Maybe. Or maybe she's planning something else. People who are this focused on money rarely give up after the first attempt." "What do you mean?" Sandra put down her fork and looked at me seriously. "I've seen cases like this before. When adult children become fixated on their parents' assets, they sometimes escalate if they don't get what they want immediately." "Amanda wouldn't do anything illegal," I protested. "Not overtly. But there are ways to gain control of someone's finances that exist in gray areas legally. Have you updated your will recently? Your power of attorney documents? After Thomas died, I made Amanda my power of attorney and sole beneficiary. It seemed the natural thing to do." "You might want to reconsider that now," Sandra advised, "at least until this situation resolves. And if she does reach out, be careful. Document everything." 2 days after my birthday, the text arrived. "Mom, I think we need to talk. Can we have dinner Friday at the Capitol Grill downtown? Just the two of us. I miss you." My heart leapt at this olive branch. Maybe Amanda had reconsidered her demands, or at least was willing to discuss a compromise. I immediately texted back, "Yes, I'd love that." "What time?" 7:30. "I've already made reservations." The Capitol Grill was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, a place I'd only been once before, when Sandra celebrated winning a major case. I spent the next 2 days wondering what to wear, what to say, how to rebuild the bridge between Amanda and me without sacrificing my financial security. I went shopping for a small gift for Tyler, settling on a storybook about a grandmother and grandson going on adventures together. I wrapped it carefully with a note telling him how much I loved and missed him. The evening before the dinner, I called Sandra. "Amanda's invited me to dinner tomorrow to talk at the Capitol Grill." "That's interesting," Sandra replied, her voice cautious. "Why such an expensive place for a reconciliation dinner?" "Maybe it's neutral territory. Or she wants to show she's making an effort." Maybe Sandra didn't sound convinced. But be careful, Gillian. Something about this feels off to me. "What do you mean?" The sudden silence then, an invitation to a very public, very expensive restaurant. It has the feel of a setup. A setup for what? I'm not sure. But promise me, you'll be on guard. And call me right after, no matter how late. I promised, though I thought Sandra was being paranoid. This was my daughter we were talking about, not some criminal mastermind. That night, I stood before my closet, selecting my best outfit, a navy blue dress I'd bought on sale at Nordstrom 2 years ago. I practiced what I'd say to Amanda, how I'd express my love for her while standing firm on my financial boundaries. I rehearsed offering to help with the wedding in other ways, perhaps making centerpieces or helping address invitations. As I laid out my clothes, I found myself remembering Amanda's 5th birthday party. I'd worked double shifts for weeks to afford the princess-themed party she wanted, complete with a castle cake and tiny tiaras for all her friends. The joy on her face when she saw the decorations was worth every exhausted moment. "You made magic, Mommy," she'd whispered, hugging my legs tightly. Where had that grateful child gone? The next morning I had my hair done at the local salon, splurging on a styling rather than my usual trim. The stylist Judy had known me for years. "Hot date tonight. she teased as she worked. "Dinner with my daughter. We've had a bit of a rough patch, but we're going to sort things out." "That's wonderful," Judy smiled. "Family is everything. My mother and I fought like cats and dogs when I was younger, but now we talk every day." Her words gave me hope. Perhaps this dinner really was the beginning of healing between Amanda and me. By 6 o'clock, I was dressed and ready. The small gift for Tyler tucked into my purse, along with my wallet phone and a small notebook where I'd jotted down points I wanted to discuss with Amanda. Sandra had texted twice reminding me to call her after the dinner and to trust my instincts. The drive downtown took 40 minutes in early evening traffic. I found myself growing more nervous with each mile, both eager and anxious about the conversation ahead. I parked in the garage near the restaurant, taking a moment to check my appearance in the rearview mirror and take several deep breaths. "We can fix this," I told my reflection. "One step at a time." The Capitol Grill stood imposing in the evening light, all polished brass and gleaming windows. The valet took my car keys with a polite nod, and I smoothed my dress before walking through the heavy doors into the dimly lit interior. The hostess, a sleek young woman with a perfect chignon, checked her tablet when I gave Amanda's name. "Ah, yes, the Thompson party. The rest of your group has already arrived. Right this way." Rest of the group? I thought the dinner was just Amanda and me. I followed the hostess through the restaurant, past tables of business people and couples celebrating special occasions. The rich aroma of aged steaks and expensive wine filled the air. We approached a semi-private area in the back, and I saw Amanda seated at a round table. My momentary confusion at the rest of your group comment was immediately answered when I saw she wasn't alone. 3 people in business suits sat with her 2 men and a woman, all with the polished, slightly predatory look of high-end professionals. My stomach tightened with sudden apprehension. Amanda stood as I approached her, smile not reaching her eyes. She wore a designer dress I'd never seen before, her hair and makeup flawless. "Mom, you made it," she said, giving me a brief, stiff hug that felt more like a formal greeting than a reconciliation. "I said I would," I replied, confusion growing. "I thought it would be just us tonight. I thought it would be helpful to have some professional advice present for our discussion." Amanda gestured to the 3 strangers. "This is Harold Winters, Diana Lowell, and Martin Grayson. They're attorneys who specialize in family estate planning." Attorneys. My confusion was rapidly turning to alarm. Sandra's warning echoed in my mind as I reluctantly took the empty seat between Diana Lowell and Harold Winters. "Mrs. Thompson, it's a pleasure to meet you," Harold said, his voice smooth as silk. "Amanda has told us so much about you." "Has she?" I glanced at my daughter, who was studiously examining the wine list. I wasn't aware we needed lawyers for a family dinner. "Mom, please don't start." Amanda sighed, the familiar, exasperated tone she'd perfected in her teenage years. "We're here to discuss important matters that affect all of us, and it's better to have proper legal guidance." A waiter appeared asking for drink orders. Amanda and the lawyers all ordered expensive wines and cocktails. I asked for water with lemon, wanting to keep my head completely clear. So I said after the waiter departed, "What exactly are these important matters that require 3 attorneys at dinner?" Martin Grayson opened a leather portfolio similar to the one Amanda had brought to my house for the wedding discussion. "Mrs. Thompson, your daughter has expressed concerns about your financial well-being as you continue to age. As you're approaching 70, it's prudent to have proper plans in place for the management of your assets." "My financial well-being," I repeated slowly. I wasn't aware my finances were a concern to anyone but me. Mom Amanda interjected, "We're worried about you. You live alone in that old house you're still working at your age, and you've been making some concerning decisions lately." "What concerning decisions?" "Refusing to help with my wedding, for one," Amanda said. "It's not like you to be so selfish. It made us wonder if there might be other issues affecting your judgment." The waiter returned with drinks and took our dinner orders. I barely heard the specials he recited, my mind racing to understand what was happening. Once he left, Diana Lowell slid a document across the table toward me. "We've prepared a durable power of attorney that would allow Amanda to manage your financial affairs," she explained in a practiced, soothing voice. "This isn't about taking control away from you, Mrs. Thompson. It's about having safeguards in place." I didn't touch the document. "I already have a power of attorney in place. It only activates if I'm medically determined to be incapacitated." "That's the issue," Harold said. "By the time incapacity is officially determined, financial mistakes may already have been made. This would allow for a smoother transition of financial management." "I don't need a transition," I stated firmly. "I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs." Amanda made a show of looking concerned. "Are you, Mom? You forgot my birthday last year?" "I did not forget your birthday. I called you at 8 in the morning, and we spoke for 20 minutes. "That's not how I remember it," Amanda said, shaking her head sadly. "And there was that time you got lost driving to our house, even though you've been there dozens of times." "I wasn't lost. There was road construction, and I had to take a detour." Mrs. Thompson Martin cut in smoothly. "These memory lapses happen to everyone as they age. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it is something to prepare for." With growing horror, I realized what was happening. Amanda wasn't here to reconcile. She was attempting to have me declared incompetent to manage my own finances. She was trying to get control of my money through legal means, since I'd refused to give it to her directly. "I've taken the liberty of documenting some incidents that concern us." Amanda continued, pulling several photographs from her purse. "This is from last Christmas, when you put salt in the cookie recipe instead of sugar. And here's one of your kitchen from when I visited in February, showing expired food in your refrigerator." The photos were real, but presented completely out of context. The cookie incident had been a simple mistake anyone could make, and the expired food was a single container of yogurt that was one day past its date. "And we have statements from friends who've noticed changes in your behavior," Harold added. "What friends?" I demanded. "Several people from your church have expressed concerns," Amanda said vaguely. "They didn't want to upset you by bringing it up directly." I looked around the table, taking in the concerned expressions that didn't quite mask the predatory intent beneath. Jackson sat silently beside Amanda, looking uncomfortable, but making no move to intervene. I noticed he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Let me be very clear," I said, keeping my voice low and steady. "There is nothing wrong with my mental capacity. I refused to pay for an extravagant wedding because it was financially irresponsible, not because I'm losing my faculties." "Mom, we're just trying to help," Amanda insisted. "If you sign this now, it doesn't mean I'll take over everything immediately. It just means the structure is in place for when you need it." "And when would you decide I need it?" "The moment I leave this restaurant." Diana Lowell cleared her throat. "Mrs. Thompson, I understand this is difficult to hear, but your daughter is acting out of love. She wants to protect you and your assets." "My assets," I repeated. "That's what this is really about, isn't it? This isn't about my well-being. It's about getting control of my money, since I wouldn't give it to you for the wedding." Amanda's expression hardened. "That's not fair. We're worried about you. If you were worried about me, you wouldn't have blocked me from seeing my grandson for weeks. You wouldn't be ambushing me with lawyers at what was supposed to be a reconciliation dinner. The waiter approached with our appetizers, then backed away quickly, sensing the tension at the table. Amanda leaned forward, dropping all pretense of concern. Fine. You want the truth. Yes, this is about the money. Money that should be supporting your family, not sitting in accounts while you continue to live like you're one step away from poverty. I saved that money for my retirement, Amanda. After working for nearly 40 years, I deserve security in my final decades. And what about my security? What about Tyler's future? Why should we struggle when you're sitting on a nest egg that could change our lives? You make 6 figures. Jackson's family is wealthy. You're not struggling. You're greedy. Amanda's face flushed with anger. You have no idea what our expenses are. The social obligations, the expectations from Jackson's family. We need to present a certain image. An image more important than honesty, than treating your mother with basic respect. Martin Grayson interrupted our increasingly heated exchange. Ladies, perhaps we should focus on the matter at hand. Mrs. Thompson, the document before you would establish Amanda as your financial power of attorney, allowing her to manage your assets in your best interest. And if I refuse to sign? Amanda's expression turned cold. Then you've made your choice, Mom. Either sign the paper or you'll never see Tyler grow up. It's that simple. The restaurant sounds seemed to fade away as her words hung in the air between us. My own daughter was blackmailing me, using my beloved grandson as leverage to gain control of my life savings. The realization should have crushed me, but instead, a strange calm settled over me. Sandra had been right. This wasn't about reconciliation. It was a carefully planned ambush. A waiter approached, asking if everything was satisfactory with our appetizers, which no one had touched. His unwitting interruption gave me precious seconds to think. I looked at the document on the table, then at the pen Martin Grayson was extending toward me. Amanda watched with barely concealed triumph, certain she had me cornered. Jackson still wouldn't meet my eyes, his discomfort evident in his rigid posture. I need a moment, I said quietly, reaching for my purse. No one objected as I opened it and took out my phone. Amanda probably thought I was checking the time or looking for reading glasses to review the document. What she didn't know was that Sandra and I had discussed this very possibility 2 days ago. If anything feels wrong, if there's any pressure or manipulation, call me immediately, Sandra had insisted. Don't wait until after dinner. I'll be standing by. I pulled up Sandra's contact and pressed call, putting the phone on speaker and setting it on the table. "What are you doing?" Amanda asked, her confident expression faltering slightly. "I'm getting a second opinion," I replied calmly. Sandra answered on the second ring. "Gillian, is everything okay?" "Sandra, I'm at dinner with Amanda and 3 attorneys who want me to sign a power of attorney document giving Amanda control of all my finances." There was a brief pause before Sandra's voice came through, sharp and professional. "Gillian, don't sign anything. I'm on my way. Who are the attorneys present?" I looked at the 3 lawyers who were suddenly shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Harold Winters, Diana Lowell, and Martin Grayson. "Mrs. Thompson, this is a private family matter," Martin began, but Sandra's voice cut him off. "Actually, Mr. Grayson, attempting to pressure a senior citizen into signing over financial control under duress could be construed as elder abuse in this state. As Mr. Grayson, Thompson's attorney, I advise all of you to retain any documents present until I arrive." "Your attorney?" Amanda sputtered. "Since when do you have an attorney?" "Since I suspected you might try something like this," I replied. Sandra Reeves, formerly an ER nurse, now specializing in elder law. We've been friends for 30 years. Amanda's face paled slightly. Mom, you're overreacting. We're just trying to have a family discussion about your future. With 3 lawyers and documents already drawn up, that's not a discussion, it's an ambush. Sandra spoke again. Gillian, is Jennifer there yet? She should have arrived by now. This was part of our contingency plan that even I hadn't been sure was necessary. Jennifer was an Adult Protective Services investigator whom Sandra had alerted after our conversation about the suspicious dinner invitation. "Who's Jennifer?" Amanda demanded, looking around the restaurant nervously. As if on cue, a professional-looking woman approached our table, Mrs. Thompson. "I'm Jennifer Blackwood from Adult Protective Services. Your friend Sandra contacted our office with concerns about potential financial exploitation." The 3 lawyers exchanged alarmed glances. Diana Lowell began gathering her papers quickly. "This is ridiculous," Amanda protested. "We're trying to help my mother, not exploit her." By threatening to keep her grandchild from her unless she signs over financial control, Jennifer asked, her tone deceptively mild, as she took a seat at our table without being invited. That could constitute emotional abuse and financial coercion. Harold Winters stood abruptly. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. We were simply providing options for Mrs. Thompson to consider." "Sit down, Mr. Winters," Jennifer said firmly. "We're not finished here." Just when I thought the situation couldn't get more intense, I saw 2 more familiar figures approaching our table. Gerald and Patricia Williams, Jackson's parents, looking confused and concerned. "What's going on here?" Gerald demanded, his authoritative voice carrying across the restaurant. "Jackson, Amanda, why are there lawyers at this dinner?" Amanda's eyes widened in shock. "What are you doing here?" I allowed myself a small smile. "I called them this morning, after I remembered something important." What Amanda asked, her voice barely a whisper. "That Jackson's father sits on the ethics committee of the State Bar Association. I thought he might be interested to know that his daughter-in-law was attempting to declare her fully competent mother incompetent for financial gain." Gerald Williams' expression darkened as he took in the scene. "Is this true, Jackson?" Jackson finally looked up, his face a mask of shame. "It wasn't my idea, Dad. Amanda said her mother was becoming forgetful and needed help managing her finances." Forgetful, I pulled out my phone again and opened my calendar app. I work 3 days a week as a volunteer coordinator at Memorial Hospital, managing 30 other volunteers. I take a continuing education class every semester at the community college. I balance my own checkbook, manage my investments with my financial advisor, and file my own taxes. Would you like to see my schedule for the past 6 months? Patricia Williams looked at Amanda with new eyes. "You told us your mother couldn't afford to contribute to the wedding because she had made poor financial decisions. You never mentioned that she simply chose not to fund an excessively expensive event." It's not like that, Amanda began, but Patricia cut her off. "I'm beginning to think it's exactly like that," she said coldly. "Using your son as leverage to extract money from your mother is deplorable, Amanda. We did not raise Jackson to participate in such behavior." Sandra arrived, then striding purposefully to our table. "I see the gang's all here," she observed dryly before turning to the 3 attorneys. "I'd like to review any documents you've prepared regarding my client Gillian Thompson, and I'll need your bar association numbers." Martin Grayson stood up, straightening his tie nervously. "This consultation was preliminary only. No documents have been executed. Nevertheless, I'll need copies of everything you've prepared," Sandra insisted, "and I'll be reporting this incident to the Bar Association Ethics Committee." Gerald Williams nodded grimly. As will I." Amanda looked around frantically, her carefully constructed plan disintegrating before her eyes. "Mom, you're making a scene over nothing. We can talk about this privately." "There's nothing to talk about," I said quietly. "You tried to declare me incompetent to get your hands on my money. You used my grandson as a bargaining chip. Those aren't actions that can be explained away in a private conversation." Jackson finally found his spine. "Amanda, this has gone too far. I told you I wasn't comfortable with this plan from the beginning." "So you knew about it?" his father demanded. Yes. But I tried to talk her out of it." "Not hard enough," Gerald snapped. Jennifer from Adult Protective Services had been quietly taking notes. "Mrs. Thompson, would you like to file a formal complaint regarding this attempt at financial exploitation?" I looked at Amanda, seeing not the manipulative woman before me now, but glimpses of the little girl she had once been. Despite everything, she was still my daughter. "I need time to consider that," I said finally. "For now, I want it clearly understood that I am mentally competent, financially independent, and will not be pressured into giving up control of my assets to anyone." "And Tyler," Amanda asked, her voice small, "are you going to try to take him away from me?" "Unlike you, I would never use a child as a pawn," I replied. "But I have spoken with a family law attorney, and I've filed for grandparent visitation rights. Given your attempt to use Tyler to manipulate me financially, I believe the court will look favorably on my application." Amanda's eyes filled with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were from remorse or frustration at being thwarted. "The wedding is in 3 months," she said. "Without your contribution, we'll have to cancel everything. We'll lose all the deposits." "That's a consequence of your choices, not mine," I said firmly. "Perhaps a smaller, more meaningful celebration is in order." Patricia Williams nodded in agreement. "Gerald and I will be reconsidering our contribution as well. We support celebrations of love, not displays of excess that lead to family extortion." Amanda looked to Jackson for support, but he was deep in conversation with his father, who appeared to be reading him the riot act in hushed but intense tones. Diana Lowell cleared her throat. "Mrs. Thompson, in light of this misunderstanding, we'll be withdrawing from any involvement in this matter." "A wise decision," Sandra replied. "Though you might want to review the ethics of participating in schemes to declare competent seniors incompetent for financial gain." The 3 lawyers made their excuses and departed quickly, leaving Amanda isolated and exposed. I stood up, gathering my purse. "I think this dinner is over. Sandra, Jennifer, thank you for your support. Gerald, Patricia, I appreciate you coming on such short notice." "Mom, wait," Amanda called as I turned to leave. "What happens now?" I paused, looking back at my daughter, seeing both the manipulative woman she had become and the sweet child she had once been. "That depends on you, Amanda. I'll always be your mother, and I'll always love you. But trust once broken must be earned back. You have some serious soul-searching to do." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, head held high for the first time. In weeks, feeling like I had regained control of my life. The days following the disastrous dinner were surprisingly quiet. I expected angry calls or texts from Amanda, but there was only silence. Sandra checked in daily, concerned about potential retaliation, but it seemed Amanda had retreated to lick her wounds and reassess her strategy. 4 days after the dinner, I received an unexpected call from Gerald Williams. "Gillian, I hope I'm not disturbing you," he began formally. "Not at all, Gerald. How are you?" Concerned, to be honest. Patricia and I have had several long conversations with Jackson about what transpired. He's deeply ashamed of his role in all this. As he should be. I replied, not feeling particularly charitable toward my son-in-law at that moment. Yes, well, he claims he tried to talk Amanda out of it, but eventually gave in to keep the peace. Not an excuse, just an explanation. And Amanda. Gerald sighed heavily. That's actually why I'm calling. She's not taking this well. The wedding has been postponed indefinitely. Jackson insisted on counseling before they proceed with any plans. She's furious with everyone, including us, for withdrawing our financial support. I'm sorry to hear that I said, and despite everything, I meant it. It brought me no joy to see Amanda's dreams collapse, even if those dreams had been built on excessive materialism and manipulation. There's something else you should know, Gerald continued. We've learned this wasn't the first time Amanda has attempted to access money improperly. Jackson discovered she's been making unauthorized transfers from their joint accounts to a personal account in her name only, substantial amounts over the past year. This news shouldn't have shocked me given recent events, but it did. Does Jackson know what the money was for? Shopping primarily. Designer clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, living beyond even their considerable means. There's nearly $50,000 unaccounted for. I closed my eyes, wondering where I had gone so wrong in raising a daughter who would steal from her own husband. I don't know what to say, Gerald. You don't need to say anything. This isn't your fault. Some people, regardless of their upbringing, develop these tendencies. Patricia and I feel partially responsible. Perhaps we welcomed Amanda into our lifestyle too enthusiastically, without emphasizing the years of work and responsibility that created it. After speaking with Gerald, I contacted the family law attorney Sandra had referred me to. We filed formal paperwork, requesting regular court-ordered visitation with Tyler. The documentation included details of Amanda using access to my grandson as leverage for financial gain, which the attorney assured me would strongly support my case. A week after the dinner, Sandra invited me to join a support group she ran for older adults dealing with family financial conflicts. I was reluctant at first, embarrassed to share my story with strangers. But at the first meeting held in a community center near my home, I found myself among people who truly understood. There was Robert, whose son had forged his signature on loan documents. Maria, whose niece had moved in temporarily and refused to leave 2 years later, paying no rent while running up utility bills. Thomas, whose 3 children were fighting over their inheritance while he was still very much alive, treating him as little more than a walking wallet. Hearing their stories helped me understand that what Amanda had tried to do wasn't uncommon, nor was it a reflection on my parenting. Some people, when faced with the opportunity for financial gain, simply make bad choices regardless of their upbringing. The hardest part, Maria said during one session, is continuing to love them while protecting yourself from them. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop loving. Those words resonated deeply with me. I did still love Amanda despite everything. She was my child, the little girl who had once cuddled in my lap for bedtime stories, who had held my hand crossing streets, who had made me construction paper jewelry for Mother's Day. But loving her didn't mean I had to allow her to exploit me. 3 weeks after the dinner incident, my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. I opened it to find Jackson standing on my porch, looking uncomfortable with Tyler beside him, holding a small bouquet of daisies. Grandma Tyler launched himself at me, wrapping his arms around my legs. I knelt down to properly hug him, tears springing to my eyes at the contact I had missed so desperately. "We brought you flowers," he announced proudly. "They're beautiful, sweetheart. Thank you." I looked up at Jackson, who shifted from foot to foot like a schoolboy called to the principal's office. "Amanda doesn't know we're here," he admitted. "But I thought, it isn't right to keep Tyler from you. You're his grandmother. I invited them in, and Tyler immediately ran to the toy box I kept in the corner of my living room specifically for his visits. "How are things?" I asked Jackson once Tyler was happily playing. "Complicated," he sighed. "We're in couples counseling. Amanda's also seeing someone individually. The therapist thinks she has some issues with materialism and entitlement that stem from feeling deprived as a child." I bristled at the implication. I gave her everything I possibly could. "I know," that Jackson said quickly, and so does she deep down. But somewhere along the way, she developed this belief that having expensive things would make her feel secure and worthy. Meeting my family probably made it worse. I couldn't argue with that assessment. And the wedding? On hold indefinitely. We're focusing on fixing our relationship and our values before celebrating them. My parents have been surprisingly supportive of this approach. After that initial visit, Jackson began bringing Tyler over every other weekend, initially staying for the visits, then eventually dropping him off for a few hours at a time. Amanda remained distant, sending terse texts when necessary regarding Tyler's schedule or needs, but avoiding direct contact. The court approved my petition for regular grandparent visitation, granting me 1 weekend a month, plus holiday time. I was grateful for the legal protection, though Jackson assured me it wasn't necessary. "Even Amanda wouldn't fight this now," he said. "She knows she crossed a line." 2 months after the dinner incident, I received a letter from Amanda. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter on expensive stationery. "Mom," it began, "I don't know how to start fixing what I've done. The therapist suggested I write to you as a first step. I'm not asking for forgiveness yet because I haven't earned it." The letter continued, with an acknowledgement of her actions and the beginning of an apology, though it still contained justifications and excuses. It wasn't a complete reckoning, but it was a start, an opening of a door that had seemed permanently closed. I wrote back, keeping my response kind but firm. I expressed my continued love for her, but also my need for genuine change before we could rebuild trust. I suggested we meet in a neutral location, perhaps with a family therapist present, when she felt ready. Meanwhile, I took steps to protect myself from any future attempts at financial manipulation. Sandra helped me update my will and power of attorney documents, naming her as my financial agent should I become incapacitated. We set up a trust for Tyler's education that couldn't be accessed for any other purpose. I installed a security system in my home and added password protection to all my financial accounts. These precautions weren't just about Amanda. The support group had taught me that it was simply prudent to protect myself as I aged regardless of family dynamics. 6 months after the dinner incident, Amanda finally agreed to meet me at a family therapist's office. She entered the room looking different than I remembered. Less polished, more authentic somehow. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup, replaced by jeans, a simple sweater, and a face that showed her natural freckles. "Hi, Mom," she said softly, and for the first time in years I heard my actual daughter, not the social climbing persona she had created. The session was difficult, with moments of tension and tears on both sides. The therapist guided us through a structured conversation, helping Amanda take responsibility for her actions while allowing me to express my hurt without attacking. "I got lost," Amanda admitted at one point. "Somewhere between trying to fit into Jackson's world and trying to prove I belonged there, I lost sight of what really matters." It wasn't an instant reconciliation. One session couldn't undo the damage of years of materialistic values and months of manipulation. But it was a beginning, A first step on a long road, back to a relationship that might never be the same, but could perhaps be honest and respectful in a way it hadn't been before. 1 year after the fateful dinner at the Capitol Grill, my relationship with Amanda had evolved into something new, not better or worse than before, but different, more honest with clearer boundaries. The wedding eventually happened, but it bore little resemblance to the extravagant event originally planned. Amanda and Jackson married in the garden of his parents' home with only 50 guests in attendance. She wore a simple dress, purchased off the rack, carried flowers from a local florist, and seemed genuinely happy without all the expensive trappings she had once insisted were essential. I contributed $5,000 toward the reception, an amount that felt comfortable and appropriate to me. More importantly, it was given freely, not extracted through manipulation or guilt. Amanda accepted it with genuine gratitude, understanding, now that gifts come from love, not obligation. Tyler, now 5 years old, played a central role in the ceremony as ring bearer. Our relationship had remained strong throughout the family turmoil, protected by both the court-ordered visitation and Jackson's commitment to keeping his son connected to me. Amanda no longer interfered with our time together, seeming to understand that my relationship with my grandson was not a bargaining chip, but a sacred bond. The path to rebuilding trust with Amanda had been neither straight nor easy. There were setbacks along the way, moments when old patterns threatened to resurface. During one difficult conversation about holiday plans, Amanda had snapped, "We can't all live in tiny houses and drive old cars like you, Mom," only to immediately look horrified at her own words. "I'm sorry," she had whispered. "That was the old me talking. I'm still working on it." And she was. Through therapy, both individual and couples, counseling with Jackson, Amanda was gradually confronting the materialism and status anxiety that had driven her previous behavior. She had resigned from her marketing job at a luxury brand company, taking a position with a nonprofit instead. The pay was lower, but the work more fulfilling. Jackson had undergone his own transformation. The confrontation with his parents after the dinner debacle had forced him to examine his role as an enabler in Amanda's schemes. He had been too willing to look the other way, too conflict avoidant to stand up for what was right. Now he was more assertive, more willing to set boundaries, creating a healthier dynamic in their marriage. Gerald and Patricia Williams had surprised me the most. After witnessing Amanda's manipulation attempt, they had reached out to me, repeatedly inviting me to family gatherings and making genuine efforts to include me as an equal, not a charity case. Patricia had confided that the incident had forced them to examine their own values and the example they had set for Jackson. "We've been so focused on appearances," she admitted during a lunch we shared. Watching Amanda take that to its logical extreme was like looking in a distorted mirror. We didn't like what we saw. My friendship with Sandra had deepened through the ordeal. Her immediate support during the crisis had been invaluable, but her continued presence in my life afterward was an unexpected gift. We began volunteering together at a financial literacy program for seniors, helping others learn to protect themselves from exploitation, whether from strangers or family members. The support group became a permanent part of my life. As one of the success stories, I found myself mentoring newer members, sharing my experience and the strategies that had helped me maintain boundaries while still preserving family relationships when possible. One rainy afternoon in April, almost exactly a year after Amanda had first demanded wedding money, she came to my house alone. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I had once sat counting bills after her father died, the same one where she had presented her wedding demands. "I've been thinking a lot about values," she said, turning a teacup in her hands, "about what I want Tyler to learn from me." I nodded, letting her continue at her own pace. When I was planning that ridiculous wedding, I was so sure that the key to happiness was having the most expensive everything, impressing people who didn't really care about us. I thought success meant looking successful. And now I prompted gently. Now I'm starting to understand what real success. Island. It's what you had all along, Mom. It's integrity. It's relationships that aren't transactional. It's knowing who you are and being at peace with it. Tears welled in my eyes. This was the daughter I had raised, the one I had feared was lost forever. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she continued, her voice breaking. "Not just for the dinner and the lawyers and using Tyler as leverage. I'm sorry for all the years I made you feel like what you provided wasn't enough when you gave me everything you possibly could." I reached across the table and took her hand. "We both made mistakes, Amanda. I should have been firmer with boundaries when you were younger. I should have taught you more about financial reality, instead of just trying to shield you from it." "You did your best," she said simply. "I know that now. Our relationship would never be perfect." Amanda still occasionally showed flashes of her materialistic tendencies, and I sometimes found myself waiting for the other shoe to drop for the next manipulation attempt. But we were talking honestly for the first time in years, acknowledging our flaws and working to understand each other better. The financial literacy programs I helped develop through the Senior Center became my passion project in semi-retirement. I reduced my hospital volunteer hours to focus on creating workshops that taught older adults how to protect themselves from all forms of financial exploitation. Sandra provided the legal expertise while I contributed the personal experience and emotional support. "You've turned something painful into something powerful," Sandra observed after a particularly successful workshop. "That's real alchemy." Through it all, I maintained the boundaries I had established during the crisis. My financial information remained private, my accounts secure, my legal documents updated and clear. These boundaries weren't walls to keep Amanda out, but guidelines to help us build a healthier relationship. Tyler remained the bright light, connecting all parts of our family. His innocent love reminded us of what truly mattered beyond money or status or power struggles. Watching him grow, teaching him values through actions rather than words, became everyone's priority. Last weekend, Amanda brought Tyler for his regular visit and stayed for tea while he played in the backyard. "Jackson and I have been talking about moving to a smaller house," she mentioned casually. "The mortgage on the big place takes so much of our income, and we're both working less hours to have more time with Tyler." I smiled, recognizing the shift in values this simple statement represented. "That sounds like a wise decision." "I thought you'd say, 'I told you so,'" she admitted with a small laugh. "No need. We all find our own paths, Amanda. Some journeys just take more detours than others." As I watch Tyler now playing with the same wooden blocks his mother once played with, I reflect on the wisdom this painful chapter has brought to all of us. True wealth isn't in bank accounts or lavish weddings or designer clothes. It's in the courage to stand up for yourself while still offering love. It's in the strength to set boundaries and the wisdom to know which relationships are worth fighting for. The pain of Amanda's betrayal will never completely fade, but it has been transformed into something valuable, a hard-won wisdom I can share with others. By standing firm, I not only protected myself, but ultimately helped my daughter find a better path, one based on authentic values rather than appearances. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones? How did you balance protecting yourself while maintaining the relationship? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe for more real-life experiences and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to say no.